Okay, I want you to picture this. It's Omaha, Nebraska, 1962. You've got a 32-year-old Warren Buffett in this little office with his investors, and they are celebrating. I mean, champagne's flowing. Everyone's on top of the world. Why? Because they just pulled in a massive 45% return in a single year. And then, right in the middle of all the cheering, Buffett just drops a bomb that sucks all the air out of the room. You can just imagine the record scratch, right? The confusion. Why on earth would you kill the golden goose? This was really the first big sign that this guy, he was playing a totally different game.
And look, just to be clear, they weren't just winning. They were absolutely crushing the market, making more than 5 times the average return. So you gotta ask, why would you walk away from a money-making machine like that? To everyone else in that room, it had to have seemed like pure, absolute madness.
But, it wasn't madness. Not at all. It was the very first glimpse into a set of principles, these paradoxes that would make him one of the wealthiest people on the planet. And today, that's what we're going to do. We're going to pull back the curtain on these really uncomfortable wealth-building paradoxes.
So what was his logic? He basically told his investors, listen, we're making too much money, and that means we're probably about to lose it all. See, he could feel that the market was getting way too hot, and he knew a crash was coming. So instead of trying to ride that wave just a little bit longer, he just got out of the water completely. And that discipline, that ability to act against what everyone else is doing, that brings us to our very first paradox. I like to call it the shaking hands test. And to really get it, we need to go back in time to a moment of pure, raw, primal fear.
Do you remember this day? I mean, really try to feel it. You wake up, you check your phone, and the market is just in an absolute free fall before it even opens for the day. The headlines are just screaming words like crisis, collapse, worse since the Great Depression. Panic is literally in the air.
And this isn't just some number on a screen, right? This is personal. This is your future, your family's security, and it feels like it's just evaporating in a matter of hours. Maybe your dad calls you, and you can hear his voice shaking, asking if he should just sell everything and get out. And that financial panic, it doesn't stay on the screen. It spills right into the real world. You go to the grocery store, and it's just chaos. You see empty shelves where toilet paper and rice used to be. The fear is something you can actually feel. So you get home, you open your investment app, and you just see a sea of red. Your heart is pounding in your chest. Every single survival instinct you have is screaming at you, get out. Get out now. Sell it all. Protect what little you have left. What do you do in that moment? Now, I want you to freeze that moment, because about 1,500 miles away, an 89-year-old Warren Buffett is looking at the exact same numbers, reading the exact same headlines, and he sends a simple email to his team. It just says, time to buy. And then he tells them to deploy $6 billion immediately. And here's the absolute key. It's not that Buffett is somehow smarter than all of us. It's that he's asking a completely different question. While the rest of the world is asking, what if this gets even worse? He's asking, what if all this fear? What if this is the price of admission? He just understands that generational wealth is built when everyone else is absolutely terrified to buy.
This way of thinking leads us straight into our second paradox, which I call the wedding ring principle. And really, the easiest way to think about it is like the difference between casually dating and actually getting married.
Now, what he does completely defies conventional wisdom, right? We're all told diversify, 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 it's safer. But just look at Buffett's portfolio. 75% of it is in just 5 companies. And Apple alone makes up half of everything he owns. See, he's not just dating his stocks, he is married to them. So now take a look at your own portfolio. Honestly, how many of those stocks are you just dating? How many are you just swiping right on, hoping one of them works out? Can you really explain what each one of those companies actually does? See, Buffett's approach is this incredible concentration that's born from deep, deep knowledge. It looks way riskier on the surface, but for him, it's the safest way to invest.
All right, this brings us to our third paradox, the party everyone attended. And for this one, the scene is New Year's Eve 1999. But the real party, the one that mattered, it wasn't in Times Square. It was in Silicon Valley, right at the peak of the dot-com bubble. I mean, everybody was getting rich off of these internet companies that had never turned a single dollar of profit, names that are basically punchlines today. The media was calling it a new economy, and Warren Buffett, for sitting it out, he was publicly mocked, called a dinosaur who was totally out of touch,
And then, in March of 2000, the music stopped. The NASDAQ crashed, and $5 trillion just vanished.
So why was Buffett totally safe? It was because of this ridiculously simple principle. He didn't really get how these new tech companies were supposed to make money, so he just didn't buy them. Simple as that. While everyone else was at the loudest, craziest party in financial history, he was quietly buying shares in Coca-Cola. He wasn't avoiding technology, he was avoiding the hype.
Okay, our fourth and final paradox, the two brothers bet, is probably best explained with a really simple story. Let's meet two brothers. We'll call them Alex and Jordan.
So both brothers inherit $50,000. Alex, he's the active trader. He's glued to the news, watching the market every day, making like 80 trades a year. He feels super productive. Jordan, on the other hand, buys 5 things he really understands and then basically just forgets about the account. 20 years later, Alex's constant effort turned his 50 grand into 180 grand. Not bad, but Jordan, who did almost nothing, he has $425,000. The lesson here is so clear. The market rewards patience, not activity.
Okay, so for this final part, let's turn the mirror around and point it at you. Seriously, if you can, pull out your phone right now and open up your investment app. It's time for a little honest self-reflection.
First question, just look at what you own and ask yourself, when did I buy this? Was it during a crash, when it felt physically uncomfortable, when your hands were literally shaking as you hit the buy button? Or was it during a big rally, when everyone felt like a genius? All right, next. For each and every company you own, can you pass this really simple test? Could you explain what that company does and why it makes money to a 10-year-old? If you can't, let's be honest. You haven't invested. You've gambled. And finally, be brutally honest with yourself here. How much of your portfolio was driven by media hype? Did you buy something because you had this deep personal conviction, or was it because you saw everyone else was going to the party and you just had to be there?
And really, that's what this all boils down to. See, Buffett isn't richer than us because he's some kind of genius with a secret formula nobody else has. He's richer because he consistently does the obvious things that just feel emotionally wrong in the moment. You know, buying when others are panicking, concentrating when others are diversifying, being patient when everyone else is frantically busy. The path to wealth isn't complicated. It's not a secret. It just requires you to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.